Okay, welcome everybody. This is the SolidWorks Electrical Schematics seminar. Our speaker is going to be Vince Farrell out of Hawk Ridge Systems. My name is Lars Peterson. I set this up as I do every month. There is a Dory. If you guys are on the live stream and you want some questions to ask for Vince, just type them into the Dory. I'll be sure to ask him during the presentation. For any of you who are in the audience here, just ask out loud. Vince, if you could repeat the question, if these guys ask you into the mic so people out there know what you're talking about. And this will be posted later this week as the recording on our YouTube channel. And I'll give it over to Vince.
Thanks, Lars. And thanks to everyone for showing up today. And just to start with, there's a little screen about me so you can see my background. Vince Farrell, been an application engineer with Hawk Ridge for 3 years, been using SolidWorks for 16 plus years. I am a UCSD alumni, so go Tritons. I am also, you can see there, I am mechanical engineering by background, so not an electrical engineer, unfortunately, but I do know how to use SolidWorks Electrical. I teach it and demonstrate it. So as Lars said, if you have any questions about something, just let me know. Happy to answer those. Work experience, food packaging machinery when I first came out of school, aerospace. So I worked on the F-35, doing subsystems, but again, for mechanical, not really electrical per se. But then I went on to some project management, and then I did more electrical LEDs for aquariums, so low voltage stuff, which it would have been nice to have this tool to design circuits like that, but unfortunately didn't have it then, but it's nice to have it now. So this is a pretty informal presentation. I'm going to go through a basic thing about opening a project, then adding to a project, try to cover as well, how the manufacturing parts, how you assign those, putting in symbols, different ways of doing that, putting in wires, cables, talk a little bit about revision blocks or doing revisions to your project, as well as what goes in the title blocks and maybe some drawing creation as well. So covering a wide breadth. Hopefully it's a good introduction. And if there's something that you have a question about or you want to see, please let me know and we'll go from there. I have SolidWorks Electrical open right now, and you can see the way it's laid out. Up here at the top, we have, this is the Windows toolbar, which you'll see a lot of these icons are grayed out, but they'll become more, they'll be fleshed out as soon as we open up a project. But nice thing is when you hover over a command, you can see the keyboard shortcut. So Control Z, of course, for undo, save, Control S. So all the typical Windows commands there. You can see this is even a little button here up there at the top left. That's something people don't notice there. And you can go into the projects manager, which is really important. We'll see that in just a second. We can also go into things like the interface configuration or the application settings. So for example, if we go into the interface configuration, one thing I like to show is I have my crosshairs set to 100% of my screen size. You'll see that when I do open up a drawing, and that's useful because it helps you to line up your symbols with wires, things like that. So that I find that really, really helpful. Oh, this is something that I get sometimes in class. How do you do a reverse wheel zoom? So there's that check mark here. So this is your way to take the application, take the interface, and really customize it to what you're going to be using most of all. You see, you can customize the tab positions, change the style. Okay, so the default silver, but you can change your colors, as well as this big one, changing your unit system, right? Metric or imperial, the text display, a couple of different things there. Oh, and you can also change the help. Like I have my help set to local. You can go to the internet help. You can always reset. all those interfaces. You see we can set the application language here. Of course, we're using English, but SolidWorks Electrical does support different languages as needed. And then you got limited rights management there if you need to, as far as password protection or just locking down some user rights. All right, going as we move down, you can see, of course, over here on the right, we can minimize, maximize, or restore and close the program. Moving down, we have these different ribbon managers. So, of course, I'm a mechanical engineer. My background is SolidWorks. If you haven't used SolidWorks, that's fine. In SolidWorks, we call them command managers, but in electrical, we call them ribbon managers. And so to access different commands, you see right now I'm in the File tab. I can just click on View. This takes me to the View tab. I can turn things on and off, different panes. Thank you very much, Lars. As well as this is going to be important, the library tool. So you'll see going across this library tab, we have the symbols manager. So this is how I would access all the symbols in my SQL database. Now, if I said SQL database and you said, what is he talking about? There is are you guys kind of familiar with the database and how the electrical is running? Okay. So there's a SQL, which is actually Microsoft or Windows tool, but there's a database running in the background and a collaborative server. And in my case, on my laptop, that is my C drive. In your guys' case, I'm assuming you're going to have a server or a virtual machine, because what happens is as you create projects, as you save symbols, manufacturing parts, if you need to, all that stuff goes into that SQL database, okay? And therefore, it's available for Jeff to use, Ed to use, whoever, Lars. It's a large database that keeps track of going on, okay? Oh, yours is on your computer. Okay, so you don't have that capability. Okay, if you ever go to that, that's fine. But there's also tools. If you're not doing a SQL database, then you could still share information, but you'd have to do like an archive of an environment and then pass it around on a USB drive or something like that. So, okay, good enough. So if you are working in a collaborative environment, you do have that option, but it's all database driven. So it's keeping track. And not only that, it's keeping track of user data fields. So you'll see when we do reports later on, that's where it's pulling that information from that SQL database. All right, so that's a library. But again, this is where you're going to manage your symbols, title blocks. So you see if I go into that symbols manager, every symbol I have in my SQL database, or in your case on your computer, is going to show up here. So this is where you would edit symbols, copy symbols, delete symbols if you need be. There's a couple different ways to manage these menus. Either you can go to the classification tab right here if you happen to know the classification of what you're using. For example, I'm in the capacitors classification, right? So all these symbols are associated in that capacitor classification, right? And then there's even subclasses here like buttons and switches, right? This is all the buttons and switches. I have 67 symbols in my library. You can see that down there at the bottom left. But you see there's also a subclass under here. So we can go to just the emergency buttons. Okay, Lars looks a little confused.
I was just wondering, when you look at the top level, you're seeing everything. When you go to the sub level, it just filters out the ones for you. It's not sub.
Correct. You're talking about so Lars is saying when you go to the top level, so for example, this one, buttons and switches, because you're not going to see all the symbols all at once unless you do something like go to the filters. Okay, the filters tab, and then you remove all filters, which I'm not going to do because I have a pretty large library. Then you're going to see all the symbols at once.
So those, like the emergency ones, just filtered buttons.
Yes, they are filtered. They're filtered classifications, and you can see as you create your own symbols, you'll want to put them in the correct classification. But of course, you can always have them as unclassified elements if you're not sure. But yes, you'll see there's a lot of tools inside SolidWorks to help you organize your stuff because your database can get quite large. And that's why I'm not going to turn off all those filters because I have quite a bit of symbols in there. And if I was connected to the internet, we could go to the manufacturing parts, the electrical content portal. Either of you guys gone there at all? It's free. You just, I'll show you here. Yeah, no problem. So Jeff asked how you do that. So the easiest way I found to access it within inside SolidWorks, of course, you can just type in the URL, is you go to the manufacturer's parts manager right here. So these are manufacturer parts. And I'll talk about more about what that means in a second. You go to online content here, and then it takes you to that URL. That's the electrical content portal. You can type in or come up with your login. It's free. But the reason I'm talking about that is because I keep getting the number wrong because they keep increasing it, but there's I'll just say millions and be safe. There's millions of manufacturer parts on there, millions. Okay. So as you can see, and they don't include those all with your installation because it can bog down. It's quite a large installation. So you can pick and choose, and they're grouped by manufacturer. So you can go in there, get your manufacturer part, and then you can assign it. So you might notice, well, these are the same classifications as a symbol, the things we saw earlier. But what we're talking about here is manufacturer parts. So let me actually, before I even get too started, I do want to go into the little slideshow. So this slide here. Okay. So let's talk about what a component is, okay? The component is the master, okay? So a component represents individually identified assemblies. That's a physical part or parts that will use between your machine, cabinet, or installation. And so the thing is, when you create a component, it's in your bill of materials. But you can create a component that doesn't have a manufacturer part assigned to it, or doesn't have a symbol associated to it, or has both, or has none. It's up to you. Okay. So as we can see from this, a component can be represented multiple different ways. Line diagram symbol, schematic symbol, 2D cabinet layout or 2D layout footprint, connection labels, if you're using something with a lot of pins. And we're not touching this for this presentation, but you can also have a 3D model of a SolidWorks part that represents it, okay? And all of those are under that master component, okay? So that's why you saw when I went into the library, there's a symbols manager and there's a manufacturer parts manager, because I can have symbols associated to a component and no manufacturer parts if I don't know. Think of your manufacturer part as what you go to the catalog to order, okay? And we'll see when I actually go in and show you what I'm going to do to the drawing, we'll see that we can insert a symbol and not have manufacturer part data associated with it at all, and vice versa. You can have a component with no manufacturing, with manufacturing part data, but no symbols. Think of those as splices, butt splices, or screws, or anything like that, because again, that component list is going to be your bill of materials. Okay, you guys with me so far? Cool. I see nodding. That's good. And hopefully if anyone's online, you are nodding as well. Okay, so that's where you would go in, and you can see here there's a title blocks manager. I'll pull that up since there was a question about title blocks. You can go in here, choose the different type. I would always start with the default title blocks unless you have something specific. Or another thing is, if you are working with legacy, a DWG title block from some other program that rhymes with SchematoCAD, just kidding. it's all, it works. SolidWorks Electrical understands a lot of people are coming from AutoCAD. So a lot of things are actually still in that DWG format. But you can import your title block as a DWG. Okay, so you can bring that in. Now, the thing is, I'm going to open up just this one so we can take a look. It'll bring in the lines and stuff. It'll also bring in the text, but you see here, SolidWorks Electrical, because it's a database program, it's reading in information. You'll see, if you're kind of familiar with PDM, like a data card, right? It's different fields. It's reading it in and it's populating this. Okay, so you don't, it's not like, if I can reference SolidWorks or AutoCAD, where you would just type this information directly in here. Okay, we'll see, I'll show you guys where you put this information. That way it's bringing that, it's referencing that SQL database, it's populating your drawing, but it's also has that information like everywhere in the program, so you can bring that. So when you bring a legacy title block in, you're going to associate text in there to these are called attributes, okay, within SolidWorks Electrical. Okay, now some of these make sense. Project drawing, office address 1. I can kind of understand what that is. Some of the other ones, folio, TZ dash, I don't know what that does. Nice new thing. What version of electrical are you guys using? 17? 16. I hate if I'm being recorded if I say the wrong thing, but so I don't think this is in 16. I think this is something in 17. But what they did was they added this attributes view thing here, this command. So here you can show the attributes, what the SQL database is, what SQL is doing. You can also show sample values, or you can show the description. Okay, so the description is going to be, yeah, but never fear, that's an easy way to do it, of course. So, you know, file mark, user description, location path. But if you don't have that, no problem. If we go back to show attributes, what you can do is over here on the left, there's attribute lists. So projects, and you can see those same descriptions. That's, let me try to pull this out here. You can see where that information is coming from. Anything that's blue is on the drawing. Okay, so that's how you know what you've already added. And then up here, if you're creating your own, you can insert attributes. Okay, and this is how you would add something new. Lars is looking confused again. What's up, Lars? Just soaking it all in? He's got a permanent, I don't know what's going on face. Well, that's, so again, back to that, if you guys are importing from, you know, a DWG format, you could assign those attributes to these existing attributes. And you're going to want to do that because otherwise you're forced, every time you do something, you're going to have to change. You're going to have to manually type it in, right? Which you definitely don't want to do. All right. So that's, oh, everyone know how to navigate around in SolidWorks Electrical? Like how to move stuff around? I can go through the basics. Love it. All right. So, again, remember what I said about the 100%, the crosshairs? Now you can see it, right? It's stretching out. So again, personal setting, but I find it helpful. So navigating around a drawing that's open, let me put this down. Think of it, you can zoom in and out using your middle mouse wheel, okay? And it's very similar to, like SolidWorks, when you're looking at your middle mouse button, if you're moving it towards you, you're pulling the drawing towards you, right? If you're moving it over the top, if you're pushing it away from you, you're pushing the drawing away from you. Little nice little keyboard shortcut or mouse shortcut. Double click your middle mouse button, zoom to extents. Of course, up here at the top, Notice how I let you guys know as soon as you get a drawing open, these things become active or you can select them. So you can do zoom extents up there. You also see that there's a Control E is the keyboard shortcut. Okay. But double middle mouse button is the same thing. I find it's a long way to go up there. I don't know, especially when I'm in the thick of it. So, but I think that's helpful. Real-time pan. So in this case, we're going to use that middle mouse button again. Hold your middle mouse button down. You see there's a hand there. So it's like you're grabbing the drawing and you're moving it around to wherever you want. So you can zoom in. Move that. That's pretty much it. I mean, you can do window selection, left to right to select everything inside of a window, right to left to select everything crossing a window. So it's typical like that. Oh, something I like to point out that's a little hidden thing that people don't find that often. And unfortunately, it's a little hidden because let me move this down so you guys can see that. Okay, see that arrow there? When I select that and go to more, so this is how you customize your quick access toolbar, which is this. Okay, and also if you go to more commands, this is how you see all of the keyboard shortcuts. I get that question sometimes, right? It's a little bit hidden. Of course, if you go to the help, you'll be able to find it. But sometimes it's easier if someone just shows you, right? So, and then of course there's other options in here, show full menus, commands, this is how you would set up more of how the program looks. Okay. Let me make this so the folks in the audience can see this a little better. I didn't realize it was cutting off the top there. There we go. How's that? Okay. Also down here at the bottom, right? So I'll go into these two panels in a second. Oh, and this is what we call the graphics area, or the area where you're messing around with the drawings. Down here, of course, various layout tools, grid, ortho, snap, grid, turning this grid on and off, ortho, moving in 90 degrees, snap, snapping to a set amount, right? Snap is probably one of your most important things, because you'll see if your wires are set to a certain spacing and your snap spacing is off, then your wires and your symbols aren't going to connect. Okay, so just be careful of that. You want to check your snap spacing. You can always right click on this and it brings up an extended menu. And of course, snap, where you can have things snap to a part of your geometry. Okay. So here's where you would adjust your snap spacing, your grid spacing, all that stuff. You can set your grid zone, change your measurement system, all from here. Okay. And again, that's just a right click down here. All right. Back over here, let me close this title block down. I don't need it. Notice when a drawing's open, you get a tab here. You can just hit the X if you want to close something. I'm not going to save changes. Okay. So on the left, we have the document/components pane. So remember that components, it's a familiar looking symbol, right? This is where all our master components are going to show up, right? And then documents are where our drawings are going to show up. And then over here on the right, these used to be all one pane over here on the left. They decided to take up a little bit more real estate and split it basically. So have some over here to the right, which I personally like because I feel like it's easier. But you can see there's no properties right now, but we have the house, which is like the resources pane in SolidWorks, where you can do a lot of quick tools, start a new project, unarchive a project, access tutorials, which is the old training manual for SolidWorks Electrical before they changed it in 2016. But I encourage you to go through there. There's a lot of good stuff. Here's another place where you can get to the content portal, right? The electrical content portal, which I showed you guys. And then you can check out subscription services and partner solutions like us, like Cockroach. Okay. Whew, man. Is it 2 hours yet? Just kidding. All right. Well, let's start. Most of the stuff I'm going to show you is an existing project. So I'll get to that in a second, but I did want to show you a new project just so you can see how that happened. So you can go to the resources page, select new project. You can also go to the projects manager here under the file menu, or the project managers right here as well. Okay, so any of those places, there's usually, just like a lot of other programs, there's usually 2 or 3 ways to do something. Okay, here I'll show off the project manager just because you can see if you've been working on projects, they'll show up in your recent projects. You also have all projects. So this is SolidWorks Electrical works on a unarchive basis. And the reason it does that is because you need symbols, manufacturer parts, right? All your drawings. There's a lot of data in a project. So if you want to transfer that over to someone, or you want to save it or back it up, you don't want to be stuck the next time you go open it that you're missing something. You're missing a manufacturer part. So what SolidWorks Electrical does is it creates these archives, which is all that data in one little package, and it's basically looks like a zip file. Okay, and it's got the I have one here. It's got this TW zip. Okay, TW is Trace Electric Works. That was the old company that was SolidWorks. They used to have SolidWorks Electrical, so that's where that TEW. But it's basically a zip file. But don't try to unarchive it using, WinRAR. Is WinRAR even around? I think it's still around. Don't try to do it like that. You're always gonna archive and unarchive SolidWorks Electrical files inside SolidWorks Electrical. Okay. And the reason you're going to do that is if you unarchive a project, for example, you get something from Jeff and he has manufacturer parts in there, it's going to add it to your SQL database. So not only you'll have it for that project, but you'll also have it if you want to use it later on. Okay. All right. Let's go in the projects manager, do a new project. And again, this is just to show you how you would create a brand new project. Here we have templates. Now, these are the base ones, except I think SWE schematic might be a custom one, but you're definitely going to have ANSI, IEC. I assume you guys are using one of those 2 standards, right? That's most of it. So when you also have the empty project. Now, if you really want to customize something and you're not happy with the ANSI or the IEC template, you want to do the empty project, go for it. It's your world, right? But keep in mind, if you use the empty project, there are some things you have to set up or the software won't let you to use that template, okay, or won't even start a project. So what I recommend is starting with the ANSI or the IEC. You can customize it to whatever you want, and then you can save it as a template. So the next time you start a new project, you can use that template. Okay. I'll use the ANSI, hit OK. You see you select the project language, English, Italian, Japanese, whatever. Hit OK. Then you get this thing, which is basically like, again, a data card where you can put in stuff. So I'm going to call this Google project here. Just the name of my project. Okay. You can see we can put in all this information down here, right? Customer, design office. Any of this stuff kind of look familiar when I pulled up that title block? Right? Remember I said those are attributes. Where are those attributes pointing? They're pointing here. Okay, so that's how I said you make the change just to here, and then all your drawings are going to update because they're all reading in that attribute. It's like, again, I'm going to make an analogy to SolidWorks, but it's like a file property, right, Lars? Lars knows what I'm saying. See, he's not confused now. I know I have to tell him something he knows.
Put it in SolidWorks context.
Yeah, I have to do everything associated with SolidWorks. Okay, and then of course a description. So always good to put in as much information as you have. You can always go back and change it. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this and hit OK. And you see there's stuff going on in the background. It's connecting to the database. Okay, so for us, if we're using our own machine, that's easy. It's just going to the C drive. If you're not and you're working with a server, it's actually communicating with the server. Okay, so it's doing some stuff, bringing in stuff for the of that template. And you see over here, I'll actually go to the Documents tab. You see the name of my project, Google Project, okay, and a document book. You see SolidWorks Electrical has different ways to organize your drawings, okay? So you can do it. Your project's at least gonna have a document book and then some drawings under it. You can have multiple document books, so just right click on the easiest way. And in electrical, if you've been playing around with it and you've noticed, right clicking is your window to everything. Okay, so right click generally. The other thing I like about right clicking is you go straight to what the entity you have to select, right? So you know I'm changing Google Project, so something like that. So you can create a new book. This is also where, let's go here. No. And if we wanted to get back to the properties that I just showed you guys, that's where you go, project properties. Okay, so you can create a new book, and then under the new book, you can create a new folder. Okay, so folder is a subset of a document book. And then this is where you would also create a new drawing. So I said I would talk about this a little bit. So you can see there's different, these are the main types of drawings. Basically, a cover page is just that, the beginning page, right? That cover page or title page. Then we have, Then we have scheme, wireline diagram, and mixed scheme. Those are the three main types of drawings, okay? Scheme is, as you might guess, shortcut for schematic. Okay, so really electrical schematic. A line diagram or wiring line diagram is more simplified, and I'm going to show you guys examples of both, again, after I go through this introduction. Then we have a mixed scheme, which is both a schematic and a line diagram. And you'll see that's going to be important because depending on whether you're in a schematic or a line diagram, you can do certain things and you're restricted from doing other things. Okay, so that's how you would create a new drawing. You see the other nice thing about the ANSI template or the IC template, these drawings have already been created for us. Okay, so we have a cover page and you can just click on it. You see down here at the bottom left, I get a preview, but I can also double click on it and it opens it up. That's how you open up a drawing in your graphics area. Okay, you can also right click and say open. The drawing list is a report, which is a bill of materials, not bill of materials, table of contents. Okay, so you can see cover page, drawing list, it's listing out all the drawings. Okay. And then we have a line diagram and a power schematic and a control schematic. And as you get more used to this, you can recognize what something is by the this diagram. Okay, this icon. All right. What was I going to say? Now, saving this out as your own custom template. Say you wanted, for example, you want a folder in there and you want, let's call that folder the schematics. Okay, so I'm just going to type in a description for there, hit OK, and it ends up down here in our tree. I can move these two schematics into that folder. Just control select them, left click, drag and drop them. So now I want this to be my custom template. Every time I open up a new project, I want it to generate these drawings like this. Okay. So what we can do is close the project, right click on it, select close. You can also do this though from the projects manager. So go to all projects. And when I go to all projects, see how that Google project is up there at the top, but it's blue and it's highlighted, it's bold. Blue means the project is open in SolidWorks Electrical. Bold blue means that's the current project. So I can have several projects open. In fact, I might as well open up this one. This is going to be the main one I was going to show you guys. So now that became the active project, but the Google project's still open. It's still in my documents tab. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so a little scratchy. Pardon me. Okay, but to use this as a template, this Google project that I did, just close it. You need to close it. So you can, click on this and select close. Okay. It's still in the recent doc or the all projects list. It's just not blue anymore because it's not open anymore. This is where you can also archive it. Okay. So this is where you would share it and it would take everything with it. And you can say save as template. So you click on this. Yeah, I'll call it the Google project template. You say archive complete. Do you want to open the folder? I'll say yes, just so you guys can see the default location of where all these templates are stored. Okay, so everything electrical does is in this program data SolidWorks Electrical folder. So if, excuse me, if your C drive's your SQL database, then that's where this is going to be pointed. If it's the server, then everything lives on there. Okay, so that's an important thing that sometimes people don't like. They want some files over here and some files over there. Nope. If you can't see me, I'm shaking my head. You can't do that. Okay, everything in one place. Yes, great question. So Jeff asked, what if you download components, online components? Perfect. When you do that, let's close this. Or one more thing before I answer that, Jeff, I just want to show you when I go to new and now I look at the templates, there's that Google project. Okay. So, but if you download something and you get an archive file, which is what you're going to get, go to your library, go to I'm assuming a manufacturer parts archive from the electrical content portal, and then hit unarchive. Okay. And you can go through an unarchive wizard, which will have you select that archive you downloaded, and then it'll walk you through what you're going to do. Basically, you're going to go through it. It's going to ask you, it's going to look at the SQL database. If it doesn't exist there, it's just going to add it. If it does exist, you can replace it. Hopefully you're not downloading something if you already have it, but and that's what you do. And as soon as you do that, it's added to the SQL database. Okay. Okay. So close this. All right. Now back to the project I already have open, or I opened, that has been a lot of work's been done, but I'm going to take you through doing more work, finishing this out. And this is the packaging line. You'll see there's two different document books in here, a packaging line and a pallet dispenser. And underneath those, we have various folders, again, cover page, drawing list. Nice thing you can do here is you have like line diagrams, and one thing to get a good idea. Now, this is a screenshot from SolidWorks or whatever. You could put a picture in here, anything, right? And what this picture is doing is it's showing me locations. Now, even though we're working with a 2D schematic, it is more than lines on a piece of paper, but there are also physical locations. Okay, so there's a pallet dispenser, main conveyor, main electrical enclosure. And so if I go over to the components tab, you'll see this is filled out a lot more. And for example, we can go to the main electrical enclosure and the chassis under that, which is a sublocation. And now you can see all the components that are in that physical location. So it's always a good idea. When you create a project, you're going to have one default location. It's just the way it is, right? But as you flesh your project out, you want to assign it to real locations, and this is physically where it's going to be. Not only is it nice to see where things are, you can tell someone, just go buy all the things in the chassis, or go, hook that up, or have a set of drawings that are just of the chassis, just for location. So it helps. I would really recommend using locations. Okay. Something you probably didn't notice as you were going through, right? If there's actual locations, and sometimes you just want to draw something, but there are locations. So that's what's going on here. Also, here's a better example, or a good example, of a line diagram. Now, again, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I like pretty pictures like this where I can kind of see what's going on. But you can see we can have all the push buttons over here, a fuse here. These are cables running in between, okay? So we can see that. We can see how fuse 1 goes to the circuit breaker, goes to this transformer. This is a PLC, okay? These are all very simplified line diagram symbols. Now, what I want to point out while I'm in the line diagram drawing is, if you look up here to my ribbon menus, there's a lot more, right? But I have this line diagram one where I have some commands that I would use for doing a line diagram. We'll see later on when I go to a schematic or a scheme, that's going to change. So just keep in mind, you could make everything a mixed scheme if you don't even want to deal with it. Totally up to you. But and in that case, you could do both. But just keep in mind, some things you can do in a schematic, some things you can do in a line diagram. Just the way it is. All right, and here we have an X1 terminal strip. We have 4 motors already. What we're going to do is add in a 5th motor. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to insert a symbol. And again, there's different ways to insert components into an assembly. Now, when you insert a symbol, we'll see that you either have the choice to create a brand new component. Remember, that component is the master, or you can associate that symbol with an existing component. Okay, but every component must have a symbol. I'm sorry. Strike that, reverse it. Every symbol must have a component. Okay? Can't exist without it. So I'm going to insert a symbol. And you see that brings up the command dialog here, where the last symbol I used, which was this push button, is active. And if I went over into my drawing, I can drop it. Again, you can see where these large crosshairs can come in handy, so I can really see when things line up. I like keeping everything as organized as possible. But this isn't the right symbol. I want a motor symbol, and I do want to drop in the correct symbol because these all have intelligence behind them. So I'm going to go to my motors classification. I could, again, use the filter search for it, and right there is that motor symbol. So I'm going to select that, and now I can just left click to place this. I'm going to butt it up right up against there, left click to place it. When I do that, I get a symbol properties dialog. Okay. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'll walk you through the highlights. First up at the very top up here is the mark. Now, right now it's set to automatic mode. What that's going to mean is there's a root letter. So for this case, a motor is an M. Okay. There's a root letter, and then the number is 5. that means it's going to assign, it's going to assume I want to put in a brand new component, and there's 4 motors already in this project, so it's going to put in a 5th one. That's what automatic mode does, okay? Now we can always go to manual and change it, okay? And, or as I said, we'll get into this a little bit later, but if there's an existing component, this is where I can assign it to that component, or I can do it after the fact, okay? Then, as I go down here, oh, you can also change the route if you have multiple routes based on the classification. And then this is where you would change the number. Now you see we look at the class here and bringing it in from that symbol. Then we have the location. So the default location, which I moved my symbol properties. See down there at the bottom, the drawing, the main electrical enclosure. So this drawing is in the location. So everything I add, unless I change it, is going to be in the main electrical enclosure location. So you can change that here using the ellipses. When I do that, it brings up all the locations in the project. And in this case, I want this one to be in the other conveyors. Yes, question.
So when you first opened up the project, SolidWorks gave you those 5 files already?
Oh, the drawings?
The drawings.
Yes.
Now, when you want to use locations, you immediately assign those to locations?
No, so Jeff's asking, when we did the ANSI template, we had 5 drawings and they're auto assigned, correct. You're always going to have, when you create a brand new project, you're always going to have at least 1 location.
And those are automatically there?
Automatically there.
You just start assigning those drawings in different locations?
Well, right. Exactly. So you always have 1 location to start with. You can go to this location dialog, and here's where you would add new locations or create several. And then after you do that, I'll show you. Well, you can go in just like I'm doing right now. So the motor by default was in that main electrical closet, but now I'm yes. But now I'm just gonna. I just went again. I'll go back to it. So main electrical enclosure here. Just went to the ellipses, and now I'm gonna pick and choose which location I want. So one of the things is if you know off the bat your locations, how many you want, or at least you have some. Just create those right off the bat, and then as you're dropping in components, you're just going to assign them to those locations as you go through.
But different components on drawing can be on different locations.
Absolutely.
But the drawing also has a location.
Correct. Yeah. So Jeff said different components in the same drawing can be in different locations. Yes. And the drawing has a location. Yes.
For PCB design, people tend to use locations for like, this is the analog section of the board and this is the digital section, or is it more for kind of these larger?
So he asked if you had, Ed asked if you had PCB design, you could do locations. Sure. You can definitely do locations.
Is that a standard practice?
The thing is I want to be diplomatic about this. Like, SolidWorks Electrical is not the best at a PCB tool, I would say. We have SolidWorks PCB, which is a great PCB tool. So that's like based on Altium. But as far as, you're pretty much, right? It does have a circuit, like insert printed circuit board over here. But it's not the default thing for that. So to be honest, I don't know what the general practice is for using SolidWorks Electrical to do PCBs, but
Thank you for unconfusing me. I actually thought that this was like the same tool.
yeah, it's not. No, there's SolidWorks PCB, but I'll be happy. I can contact our electrical product manager and ask him if he knows anything about that, or we could, get you, if you guys have SolidWorks PCB. I'm not sure if you do or not.
Yeah, although we've been using Altium standalone, but a lot of what we do SolidWorks for is putting PCBs into mechanical enclosures.
Sure. Yeah, and there's circuit works for that right now, but there's something called connectors, SolidWorks PCB connector. So if you already have Altium, you can connect it in there. So yeah, Lars, if are you taking notes, or I can write it down.
Definitely. There's so many board designers and so many do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this is more for taking that PCB that you designed and hooking up to it, like what cables go to it. So, okay. All right. So let's go for, I'm going to assign this to the L4, that other conveyors, and hit select. Okay, so now you see the location has changed. I usually can talk about functions. Functions is yet another way to organize things. Not the most intuitive, but what a function is you're saying all these components do this, do an action or do something. Okay, so we used to, before they changed the training material, we used to start with the project from start to finish, and it was a pump. It was like a water reservoir with pumps and sensors and switches. So you would say this limit switch and this valve are part of the fill function, and this other limit switch and this other valve, they're part of the drain function. So it's just another way to assign them. I see locations, of course, used a lot more than functions, but you do have that available. And we can also type in a description. I like to say just new motor here. Just again, to differentiate, you see there's all these symbol or text down here. The symbol will be associated with the new component, M5. So I'm going to hit OK. And as soon as I do that, the M5 symbol was created here. Now, and simultaneously, if I go to the components tab, now this is where locations are important, right? These are all the locations I have here. So I can expand that L4 conveyors, and right here, M5, that new component has been added automatically because I added the symbol. If I go here and click underneath that, you can see what symbols are associated with that component and where they're at. 04 is the fourth sheet, the 10th column. I had to think about it because I almost always say row, but it's column. Okay, but we'll get into second. You don't have to navigate that. We'll get into that a little bit later. I'll show you an easy way to go through your project. Okay, now what's missing from that M5 symbol that's on the other symbol? Yeah, Lars said the power, some other attributes, but a main thing that's missing right under that mark is the part number, the manufacturer part. And that's because I didn't assign a manufacturing part to this. I just did a symbol. So I can go back in here. And of course you could do this when you're inserting something. You can right click. Why are you not behaving? There we go. Right click, go back into those symbol properties. Okay, so you modify this. And then right next to the edit symbol, we have manufacturer parts and circuits. All right, this is the nitty gritty, right? We're gonna assign a manufacturing part here. You have two choices. You can search, which is search your SQL database, or you can add manually. So you always have a opportunity to add components manually or manufacturing parts manually. I'm going to do a search. See, I have the automatic refresh turned on. I'll turn that off for a second. You see it automatically sorts to the motors because that's the type of symbol I'm using. You can go in here. There's a ton of different filters you can use if you want. And again, this is based on who assigned or who created this manufacturer part. If you did, you can assign all these things. I know I'm going to use a Leroy Sommer, so I'm going to search that. I still have down here at the bottom 2,700 manufacturer parts. I can go by number of circuits, or if you happen to know the part number like I do, because it's going to be similar, it's LS112. I can do that. Now notice this didn't change. And that's because you have to hit this search button. As soon as you do that, it changes. So depending on how large your SQL database is, you can have it manually do this manual search. So put in all the information you have there on the left and then hit the search button. Or in my case, I usually just have the automatic refresh turned on. And that way, for example, if I get rid of this, this is like when you're on the web and you're doing a search, you're doing a Google search and it filters dynamically, right? So that's what that automatic, just be careful, right? If you have a lot of parts, you want to make sure that you probably want that automatic refresh turned off. All right, so back to what I'm talking about, LS112. Okay, I'm going to use this one. And as soon as I highlight it, you see down there in the bottom right, there's under this area, this is the circuits. Okay, so again, the symbol has circuits and I didn't say it again, I haven't gone over this. The symbol has circuits, the manufacturer parts has circuits. And a circuit is a physical circuit in a component, right? Two terminals running through the component. In this case, we're using a three-phase motor with a ground. So you see we have a UVW circuit as well as a ground circuit. Okay. I'm going to double click on that to add this down here to the bottom. And then you see it goes back into this dialog. So you can add multiple manufacturer parts with a symbol or with a component. Okay. For like lugs or anything else, you can add that stuff in. This is going to be good. So I'm just going to say select. Now it's added there. Okay. I have all the terminal numbers. And then when I hit OK, now I'll get that information that shows up there. Okay. What the next thing I need to do is hook this up to the X1 terminal strip. So right now, even though this M5 is just the symbols touching the M4, has nothing to do with the actual location or how it's connected. So to do that, I'm going to select this draw cable command. Okay, and you can see you can do your cables in different ways. And then I'm going to left click. See, I get that green connection symbol there at the edge of the symbol. So I'm going to left click, and then the line's just going to keep going straight, horizontal or vertical until you left click again, and then it's going to put a bend in it. Okay, and then I'm going to connect that up. So as soon as I do that, I have a cable there. Turn this draw cable through. And this is more than just a red line on a piece of paper. There's actually intelligence behind this. If I double click on this, it takes me into the detailed cabling dialog. Okay, so since all these symbols, all these components have intelligence behind them.
Now it's the default cable because you used that same one last time, right? Or did it pull that up because
There's a great question. So Jeff asked, was that the default cable? So this right now, there are no properties associated with this cable at all. And because you see, so you can see that from this dialog box. So we have an origin component, which is the X1 terminal strip. We have the destination component, which is the motor, the M5 motor, but in between, nada. So great question. So how do I assign that? I have to choose a manufacturing part. Cables are one of those things. You'll see that if you ever do connectors as well, they have to have a manufacturer part. Like, it's not like the other symbols, we can just put in a symbol. We don't have to assign one. This one you do. That's where it gets those properties. Okay. So if I'm creating a brand new one, I can just select add cable here. And as I said, it takes you automatically into the SQL database. You go in, you find the type of cable you want. If no cable exists, you want to create a new one, no problem. What you have to do though, there's no new button here. Just what I suggest is find a cable that's close to the one you want to create, and then just hit right click and select add. And the reason you're going to do that is because if I look at the properties of the cable, it's going to transfer all this information to that new cable. Okay. And again, once you create it and you add it, it's added to the SQL database for later use. In this case though, I'm not creating a brand new cable. I have an existing cable. If I go to the cores reservation next to add a cable, you see these are all the cables that have already been created. So just like I told you guys with a component, you could have a manufacturing part but no symbol yet. With a cable, you can have a manufacturing part and a cable reserved, but you haven't represented it on the drawing yet. Everything that's grayed has been represented and been assigned. Okay, so what's left? Well, this W10 cable, and sure enough, I got 3 miscellaneous wires and a neutral wire, so that's going to be perfect. So I'm going to click on that. You can also reserve individual cores of the cable. It's going to get all 4 of those, and then as soon as I hit OK, now I see the cable in the middle here.
Where did you reserve that cable?
Where did I reserve it or where did I create it?
Yeah, so when you click on the second button over, it gave you a list of cables. So before this project was made or during it,
Someone did that.
someone had said, I need these 10 cables.
So I'll show you that. Close that. So if you go to your project tab and go to cables, this is where, so project cables, this is where you would create those cables. Oh.
Here you either create new cables or select manufacturing ones you already have.
Well, okay. So just saying here, you either select, notice you can only select new cable. Yeah, right. So a new cable, a cable is always going to be defined by a manufacturing part. Okay. But when I select new cable, I'm saying I'm going to have W23 cable or whatever. And it's going to use this manufacturing part. That makes sense? Okay, great. Okay.
It's not where you make a new cable for your library.
Correct. Yeah, so Jeff said it's not where you create a new cable for your library. That's correct. What you can do if you didn't go into cables thing, again, just like manufacturing parts manager, we have a cable references manager. So if you're creating your own custom cables, again, go in here, find one that is similar, at least has the same number of conductors, and then you can just click on it. And I always say copy if possible, but you do, or you want to copy or add or whatever, and it'll bring in that criteria. Okay, cool. All right. Once that cable's been assigned, you see I have the W10 there, so that information shows up. This is a little crowded on this cable, so I can right click and say show hide cable text. And it's moving a little slow, but there we go. Okay, so, I did assign that cable, but one thing I didn't do, so I'm going to double click and go back in there, is I didn't actually hook up the cable. See, the reason I know is because if I look at the ends of the cores, they're not actually hooked up to the components, because in this example, yeah, we're going to go top to bottom over here as well, but you have the option to hook this core up with this or however you want. So you still have to tell SolidWorks how you want to connect the cable. And there's 2 ways to do that. You can select the end of the cable here, and then see over here and under the component, we have the number of wires here, the terminal. This is the circuit information. So you click on here right now, 0 wires are hooked up to this terminal. So select both and then hit connect. As soon as I do that, I see there's 1 wire here there, and then there's the reference. So I can do that multiple, just left click and hold, and then select connect. Okay, and it's going to do it just in that order. Another thing you can do, so as soon as I have a destination or an origin assigned, you see I have a question mark in the other one. Now I can look at so I'm looking at my terminal strip. I have 4 terminal blocks that aren't being used, 17 through 18. So here I can just left click, drag and drop that. And there we go. And so whichever way you want to do it, again, multiple things. But now those connections are made. I see those wires there, and now I'm good to go. So it's physically connected. All right. Any questions on that before I move on? All right, let's move on to the next drawing then. So that was a line diagram. Let's move on to a schematic diagram. So I'm going to go to my schematics folder, and then there's this one, the power packaging line. Okay, this is a more traditional electrical engineering schematic. You can see we got a group of wires here. Now these wires can still represent a cable, right? They're assigned this cable. Different components here, circuit breakers, relays, terminal blocks in the terminal strip, and the motor. So all this information can be on here. Now, I could copy one of these circuits over here and paste it down here for my M5 motor, but I'm going to create it from scratch to show you guys that process. And you can see here, again, I have a schematic tab, right? But what don't I have anymore? Line diagram, right? You guys don't see it up there. My eyes, and it's probably a little small, but no line diagram, right? So as I say, and I'll show you, right? If I go back into the line diagram, now I have the line diagram tab, but no schematic.
When you do both, does it have both tabs?
Mm-hmm.
So
So if you do a mixed scheme, you have both. It's a preference, whichever way you wanna do it. I mean, honestly, majority of people I've seen don't use line diagrams. They just do schematics. But yeah, using that mixed scheme, and again, that's right click here, new mixed scheme. That's going to allow you the option to do both if you want.
So when I've imported other drawings,
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily line up with SolidWorks' line diagram or schematic.
Okay.
You have to do mixed scheme.
Yes. Or I would. It's really about how, so if you import, Jeff's saying if you imported other drawings, they don't necessarily line up. Mixed scheme is going to be your safest route. That way you can either go the line diagram or the schematic. Yeah. Okay, good questions. All right, so let's go back here. All right, so I'm going to start off by drawing. This is my trunk line here. I'm going to draw another set of wires coming off here. So you can see I have the draw multiple wire, or I can draw single wires. Draw multiple wires is for multi-phase wires here, right? So I have three. These are wires, wire styles. Go to the manager here. In wire styles, again, these are actually the default ones in the ANSI or the IEC template. And what they are is what the wires, how they're going to look on your schematic and what the physical wires that they represent. Okay. So for example, this 24 volt control wire, if I go here and go to the properties, all the information for that type of wire is in here. To a certain extent. I mean, they don't have everything in here, but this is how you're going to set that up. So a lot of people, if you're using not the default type of wires, but you're using all 18 gauge, 16 gauge, whatever, you set up your own wire styles. Pretty easy. Either go numbering group or just hit add. Add will add a single wire like this. Multiple adds again like this big a multi-phase wire, or could be used as a cable, which we're going to use it as one.
So do you still associate these wires to the manufacturer or the wire 10?
We're going to do that. Yes, absolutely. All right. So that's the wire style manager. Select the type of wire I'm using, or excuse me, wire style. Space between lines. Is that green? We'll see if that spacing is correct. I can't remember right now. But we see the available wires. So I have 5 wires in that wire style that I could use. I don't need the neutral wire, so I can uncheck that. And then start over here at the branch line, left click. You see I get that diagonal way. That's diagonal line. That's going to be the way this comes off. the branch line or the trunk line, excuse me. So yeah, spacing's correct. And I left click and just move it out here. If you don't have the big crosshairs like I do, where I can nice and see where it's lined up with the other motors, you do have that dash line there to help you keep things aligned. I'm just going to left click, and then a trick, another keyboard shortcut. So notice when you left click, it automatically starts doing, I'm going to 90. Oh, and here over on the left, we can invert the phases, do different bends, do non-ortho if you're going to some kind of connector, or you can use space to invert. Again, keyboard shortcuts here. So another trick of, instead of going up to the left and hitting the green check, just hit your right mouse button, and it'll end the command and accept it. So there's my wires, the new wires here. Now the thing about these wires is they're not just lines on a piece of paper. They have the pink connection points there. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to show you guys, I have this brown horizontal wire here. So if I copy and paste, I can just select it, hit Control C, and then hit Control V. You see I have that pink portion is where the actual wire is. So I'm just going to right or left click to place that down so it connects up there. As soon as I do that, this brown segment gets split into two because there's a connection point there now, right? And then if I left click this one again and just move that handle up there, it creates a connection point there, so it splits this wire. Okay, but also if I take this, left click and place it back over that original wire, it goes back to one wire. It's like that rope trick you saw, right, where you keep cutting the rope and then all of a sudden it's one. So that's one of the ways SolidWorks Electrical is not going to let you make a mistake where you have lines on top of lines on top of lines. Okay, it's gonna drop it on, or it's gonna all heal it into one wire. The thing is, right, since this wire was a copy, or the other one was a copy, it's the same wire style, right? It's this, and I can left click on here, I can right click, everything's right click, right? You can wire style, go to properties, and see what type of wire style it was here. But as I said, I like that they added the properties over here. So now when I have that selected, I can easily see, not the component. There you go. Property. There we go. So I can see that information there easily.
Is that properties over there in 16?
Yes. Yeah, they made this change in 16. Yes, it is. But what I was saying is they were the same style, so no problem. If they're different styles, the one you're dropping on wins. Okay, the one that you're dropping on top of the other one, that one wins. So just keep that in mind. You can always go in here and change the wire style by right-clicking, wire style, replace, and then you just say selected items or whatever your range is here, hit the green check, and it takes you to the wire style selector so you can change it. Okay, so wire styles are pretty important, knowing what type of wire you're using, and you just put that down. All right, time to add in some components here. So again, I'm going to go here and hit insert symbol. This time though, these aren't line diagram symbols, they're schematic symbols, right? So they look a little bit different. I'm going to go to the circuit breakers. I'm going to use this 3-pole magneto thermal circuit breaker. Hit select. But just like before, I can just, when I was placing the line diagram symbol, I can just left click and place it down. Now, a cool thing is, so if you look over here on the left, you see there's the symbol orientation. So I can use that. I can select those or just right click, and it's going to rotate the symbol around. But another neat thing is when I hover over like the vertical, it automatically orients the symbol. Okay, so that's kind of nice. I'm going to left click and place this down. And just like before, it's going to want to create a brand new component. So default behavior, it's going to want to create a brand new component. It's going to create a Q11 circuit breaker. However, I know, because I've been designing this project, that I have a Q4 component that doesn't have a symbol representing it yet, and that's what I want this symbol to represent. I want this to be that Q4 circuit breaker. So the way I would select that would be to go over here to this tree. These are all my components, and then I can select that Q4 circuit breaker there. Now you can see where it's represented. It is represented as a line diagram symbol, but if I even expand this, see, there's no schematic symbol. Okay, so I can hit OK. And now when I do that, all the information, like the manufacturer part data that's associated with that Q4 component, is transferred to this symbol. So I don't have to do anything there. Okay. We'll do the next symbol over here. And to do that, though, I'm going to use this tab here, the symbols tab. And what this is a quick shortcut. These are called groups. And what these allow you to do is, you saw in my, if I go into insert symbol, back again, I mean, just in here in the magnetothermal circuit breaker subclass, I have 36 symbols. Okay. So commonly used symbols, you can place them in these groups, and this one already has some. So these can be quick access, make your life easier rather than going in and searching the SQL database every time you want to put in a symbol. So in my case, in this interrupters contactors, you see group, I have this 3-pole normally open power contact. So I can just left click and place that in here. And then here, I want to associate this to an existing component, K4. It's K11. Right now, I want to do K4. But I'm going to show you the other way. If I know that, instead of searching this tree, I can just type in 4. Now watch what happens though when I do that. See this down here? It's telling me the mark already exists. Okay? SolidWorks Electrical, it's doing checks like this. And it's saying, hey, dummy. And it's being nicer than that. But, hey, you have automatic mark on. You just changed this automatic mark that I made because it's new. You changed it to one that already exists. So what do you want to do? Choose another mark or click the associate button. The associate button is right here. Once you do that, now it's associating that component with the symbol. So this is not a program where you're just putting in blocks of symbols and manually numbering it. There's intelligence here. It's looking at components, looking at that master component. And I'm trying to hammer on that because I feel that's one of the things that people don't understand about SolidWorks Electrical. They think they can just go in and draw stuff. It's all got this intelligence behind it. Okay, so we'll do that. And then I'm going to put in the motor symbol. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to use another tool. So up here at the very top, we have a find. You can just, if you don't know what the symbol is called, or you're not sure, I can type in motor and hit find. And every symbol in my SQL database associated somehow with a motor shows up here. And then I see, oh yeah, this is the symbol I want. That's the ticket. So again, I'll put that in here. Place it down. Excuse me. And again, it's trying to create a brand new one, right? M9. But no, I know I can also use these class filters. Okay, so you can do same base class or same subclass if you're using a subclass. So here, M5, no, let's do base class. There we go. There's that M5 new motor. Hit OK, and again, I get all that information. Okay.
This is searching that in your one project. You get multiple projects.
Correct.
Keep them separate.
Yes. So Jeff's asking, this is searching in your project, and yes, it is. The components and the bill of material is a project per project kind of thing.
It seems important to have like a line diagram before you start.
Jeff said it seems important to have a line diagram before you start your schematic. The nice thing, the great thing, some things are a blessing and a curse, is you can.
You can do this in reverse order.
Correct. You could totally, or you could do it in reverse order. You could not have a line diagram at all and just have schematics. You could only have line diagrams. Your choice. It's totally up to you. Whatever way your brain works and the way you can come up with standards too, right? So however you want to do it. But, and like I said, you can even start with components. This whole thing on the left, completely populated. You could have 100 items on there, but no schematics at all, no drawings at all. And then, because, maybe hey, I know I need 10 fuses. I know I need 20 circuit breakers. I'm just going to boom, 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 boom. And then I'll figure out where they go later. Okay. So yeah, great question. It's really up to you. Yes.
So it looks like the motor that you just added has some different formatting from the ones that were previously there. Do you have like two slight variants of the same manufacturer?
Yeah, these the symbol, something about the symbol here changed a little bit. So I think these symbols have been done custom, but if we go in and look at the symbol, it still comes back to those attributes. So let me go here, symbol, open up that symbol. So let me see. So yeah, there's all these attributes here, and you see those blank spaces in the one I brought in. It doesn't have those, so they just show up as blank. Someone, or let's see me, if I created this, I move these attributes around so they're next to each other. That's it. Good question. Yeah, always a good idea. You see here, even the mark, right, is, and you can do that just by left clicking and moving those around. You can also physically go in and, like I just did, you can open up the symbol and take out whatever you want, add whatever you want. So, all right.
Retroactively change
On the
symbol, change it?
good question, Lars. Lars says it will retroactive. Thank you. Will retroactively change. You have the choice. You can take the red pill or the blue pill. You have the option. Okay. So there's quite a few things you can do. Well, not quite a few. There's a couple things you can do. First of all, you can take that new symbol and save it as a brand new symbol, which I would recommend. I would not mess with the symbols that are already in the SQL database, because who knows, you might need them, right? So I would create a brand new symbol. When you do that, when you create that new symbol, you have the option to update all the symbols in the project to that new symbol if you'd like. And that gets back to a basic thing with SolidWorks Electrical, is that it goes off the as-built type of, I don't want to say terminal, but the as-built kind of style. It's not going to change anything until you say, I want this changed this way. I don't know why it was like that, but so you'll see a lot of these places, if you did change a symbol or something, you always have to go in here, right click, go to the symbol and say update. Okay. It's not going to change it, with a couple exceptions. It's not going to change it unless you say change it. And like if we change this title block to something else, it wouldn't change it until I say update this title block. So that's a great question and a great point here. That sometimes people make changes and they're like, well, where's my change? Think of that as built. It's not going to go through and change anything until you say to do it. All right. And last thing I want to put in here is those terminal blocks. Okay. So I can do insert terminal one at a time, or insert end terminals. If I do insert end terminals, I take a group of wires like this, left click and drag a line going across. You see there's a red arrow, so the orientation up here is a little different, but on this one, I'm going to choose the red arrow to the left. And what that means is the red arrow is the top of the terminal. Terminal blocks don't have plus or minus, right? But they'll have a 1 and a 2. The red is the 1. So think of it like putting it in your cabinet, which is the top. So I'm going to select this as the top. Here again, it automatically picked up those open terminal blocks that I use because they're not represented on the schematic. So I can select those. I can do those one at a time or just hit OK all terminals and it assigns it to it. And it turned that wire style into the cores of the cable. Okay. So that kind of goes back to your question, Jeff, about wire styles. So the wire style is like think of a wire style as more general, right? Everything is like 18, whatever it is. When you have assign a cable to something or associate, it takes the properties of the cable because the cable has all the core information. Okay. Cool. So we did that. Looking good, right? Next thing I need to do, I'll go back to the line diagram, is we have a power circuit that I want to put in for this PLC. Okay. And I want to represent that down here. Well, again, in my infinite wisdom, I happen to know that that type of circuit exists elsewhere in my project. I'm going to go to my Documents tab, go to the schematic diagrams inside the pallet dispenser book, and open up the power diagram for the pallet dispenser. And there it is. This is the circuit I want to use. So got a few wire styles here, this type of circuit breaker or transformer. Okay. Server not found. Thanks. Now I can copy this circuit, move it over, but I have the little star here. If you played Nintendo growing up like I did, kind of looks like a superstar or Carl's Jr. However you want to look at it, but they're called macros. Okay. And when people think macros, they might think programming, right? To run a macro. In SolidWorks, macro is either a circuit, collection of circuits, or you could even do a bunch of drawings inside of a project that you save to the SQL database for reuse, either within this same project or in another project. So they're very, very powerful, very helpful, and all that intelligence that was in the original circuit is preserved in it. Okay. And it's really easy to make a macro. Again, you're going to use these groups. So you can, let's see, I'll use the user one here. Just use your box select whatever you want to be in the macro, left click, drag and drop it over to that group. It gives it a unique name, and all macros, and I'll say all symbols as well, they all have to have a unique name. So you see it's macro plus the date and the time, because that's unique and it's never going to happen again. Right? But give it some kind of name you would know. I'm just going to keep it default. So you can search for it, and then you hit OK. It's added over here to the macro, that group. I can close down that drawing, and now I can just bring in this macro and place it where I want, which is here. Okay. Then I get the paste special, which will give me options for each one of those components. What do I want to do with it? Do I want to put it in a new location? Do I want to create a brand new component? Do I want to associate with an existing component? So you can do all that stuff right here. I'm just going to hit finish and see what it does default. So default, it assigned it the Q11, assigned this circuit breaker Q11 and this transformer T3. It created brand new components. However, if I go back and look at the packaging line, my line diagram, this is supposed to be Q6 and T1. So again, you can go back over here after the fact, go to right click, symbol properties, and either search for it or select it. Type it in or select it. I'm just going to type in Q6, hit OK. And then same thing here, type in T1. Got about half hour left. And then now that's been created, okay? Or excuse me, that association's been done. This is saved in your SQL database. You can go look at what's in your SQL database. Again, that library tab, going to your macros manager, okay? This should be an unclassified. Yeah, right there. Okay, so this is where you can see all this stuff. You can access it, archive it, just like anything else. But I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to delete this group, that macro, and get a little error, but it's gone. Okay, but you see it still stays in my project. Okay, macros, really powerful. But what's missing here, oh, and of course, you know, if I show real quick, you can always Control C and Control V if you want. Okay, and you have that option. But the ends of this wire, they're just blank. They're just going nowhere, right? And I said I needed to hook up the PLC. Well, the PLC is on this next drawing here, 07. I can double click on it, but if I know it's on the next drawing, I can use these commands up here. Open next drawing or previous drawing. So if I just click next, it automatically opens up that 07. Okay. And there's a PLC. You guys using PLCs at all? Yeah. It's a nice PLC manager. Again, just like the PCBs, it's not for designing them, but it is for representing them. So let's go in and look at this PLC. So you can see the manufacturer. Again, PLCs need that manufacturer. So you get that data about the circuits, the inputs, the outputs, the mnemonics, descriptions about what's going on. You can go in here, you know, multiple PLCs. You can also do racks, right, with cards. So that's this add rack, add module. So there's quite a bit you can do with PLCs. It's represented. So here I actually have two PLC drawings. This one is the inputs, and then over here on 8, I think these are the inputs, or these could be the outputs, but you can represent, this is the same PLC just represented on different drawings. Okay. But what I want to do here is hook up the blue wire and the green wire from over here. So what I'm going to use is under the schematic tab, this origin destination arrows here. I'm going to turn that on. Puts the drawings top and bottom. I like to look at the vertical tiles side by side. Okay. So we're going to use a single insertion right here. Excuse me. When I do a single insertion, you see, and I move down to these drawings, so I can actually change the drawings too using these commands. But when I go to the single insertion, you see any open wire that just terminates to nothing is green. So I can select any of them, right? But when I select one, so for that example, that neutral wire, notice I can no longer select anything that's not a neutral wire. Okay, so that's origin destination arrows is another way. It's not going to let you make a mistake. You can't pick another wire style. I select that one. It creates the arrow. I'll do the second one real quick. So again, this one and this one, where you believe those are power wires, and then close this down. And then it creates an arrow that not only tells me where the other end of the arrow is. So the 7th drawing, again, one column, but it's a hyperlink. You just double click on it. And if you guys are working with people who don't have SolidWorks Electrical and you want to give them a PDF, that hyperlink is preserved in that PDF as well. It's nice. Okay. And then let's go back. And then let's go to 08 and open it up. And you can see over here on the right, these cross references. Okay. So as I said, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this K1. If I go to the components tab, you see K1 right here is a contactor relay. Okay. And K1 is one of those components that's represented by 4 different symbols in this project. 2 line diagrams and 2 schematic symbols. And if you guys remember, I know it was a while ago, but if you remember that those numbers next to it mean the page and the column. However, this project's pretty simple. What if you have 50 pages, right? You don't want to, okay, I'm going to scroll 50 over. If you right click on here, you can select go to, and it lists the other 3 symbols that aren't this symbol. So we'll click on that first one. There's a K1 right there. It not only opens up the drawing, but takes you there. There's a K1 over here, same drawing. There's a K1 back over here on 05, right? And then back here to the original one, we're back to K1. So those are different symbols representing the same component, but they can also be different symbols representing different circuits. Just to go in and take a look at this K1, if we look at this the manufacturer parts and circuits, you see we have 5 different circuits on this component. Okay, one's a relay coil, 3 normally open power contacts, and then the normally open contact. These colors mean something too. Let me see if I can do, yeah. Let me put this just an M5 motor in there. Okay. So if I just put in a brand new symbol, just a motor, right? And I have no manufacturing part data associated. Notice how the circuits are red. Red means there's a symbol on the drawing or somewhere in the project, but there's no manufacturer part data associated with it. Okay. Let me cancel that. When I look at the K1, blue means there's manufacturing part. There's a manufacturing part circuit associated with this component, but there's no symbol that represents it. And green means both. And one of those checks, so if you're going through, you're creating your project, and you look at a component and you see some red circuits, red circuits just means that you don't have a manufacturing part that represents that circuits. Or you see blue, like I said, I'm looking at this normally open contact. I know that there's no symbol on my drawing that represents that circuit. Okay, so another one of those checks. Blue, green, red. Nice, right? Some nice, and you can change those if you're red, green, colorblind. There's all those options. Okay, so that's hooking up that. Oh, and also I pulled this. Let me do this one more time. Sorry, bear with me. Of course I can't. Let me see if I can get it. I want you to be able to see both. So these symbols over here, they're a visual representation on the drawing that matches this. Okay, so see A1, A2, which is actually that symbol we're doing, but 1L1, 2T1, right there, it's green. It's a visual way. Those are called cross references. And that go to I showed you guys, that right click go to, just like the origin destination arrows, you put those in a PDF, you do this project in a PDF, those hyperlinks will be preserved as well. So a really easy way to go through your project. All right. I think this is all good to go. Everything's hooked up. Let's do some reports to finish it off. Okay, John. Oh, yeah, let's do reports, and then I'll talk about revision blocks, and revision. Okay. Yes. What's that?
I was going to ask that.
The revision?
Yeah, like you just made a change. You want to do a report, but you need to do the rev first.
Yeah, sure. We can do the rev first. That's fine. So this is how revisions work within SolidWorks Electrical. So see here, it says revision 0. Okay. The first thing you have to do when you're doing revisions is you need to revise the document book. So the document book has to be the highest level revision, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. Okay. So you just right click on the packaging line, the document book, go to revisions. You can see this information down here. Rev 0, the data was created, who created it, this M4K person. So I lied, it wasn't me. But before we can create a new revision, the current revision has to be validated and verified. And those are just, again, extra checks just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So you can validate it yourself. Just click validate. Okay. And as soon as I validate it, my name shows up here, which can be changed along with the date it was validated and then verified. When you do that, it asks you, do you want to update drawings? Again, that has built mentality. So at this point, you have the option to update everything before you create this revision. Okay. I'm just going to update everything. All right. Okay. And then the second thing it's going to ask you is, if you created a new revision, do you want to change all the drawings to that revision number? Some people do, some people don't. Some people want everything. I think if I was doing it, I'd probably want everything at the same revision, just make it easy, right? But sometimes you want this drawing at revision 0 while you want the rest of the project at Rev 1. Okay, so you have that option.
You can right click on other drawings to change it.
I'll show you, yeah, just in a second. So I'm going to say yes, it's in there. And then there's that new revision. And then I'll hit OK. And so it has to do one more thing. Then you can print the book, export it if you want. I'll hit cancel. You have the ability to take snapshot, which is a fancy name for archiving this at this time, like a backup. I'm going to say cancel. Okay. And then if I go to the cover page, that's already on there. So that drawing's been, or that revision's been put on there. So now I have the option to go in here, do another revision, okay, and then I would revise this book again, right? So this was the initial release. So let's just do a new revision just for grins. Again, I'm going to validate it and verify. And then we'll go through that. Continue action without updating. So this is where I said, well, I don't want everything at 1. I'm going to keep it all at 0. Let's say no. Hit OK. Cancel, cancel. Now if I go back to 7, or where were we looking at? 8? I guess it doesn't matter. See, these drawings are all at 0, right? So here, if I go back to this one, 08, here I can right click on just the drawing and then hit revision. And now I can add a new revision to this. And that's how you do it. So the thing that people, that's a little backwards and can trip you up is if you're just trying to revise this drawing and it's going to spit an error out to you. It's going to, so even right now, if I validate this, revisions, validate, verify, and I try to create a new revision, it won't let you do it. The book always has to be the highest. And that's it. That's
Does SolidWorks have alphabet versions?
Yes. Great question. And you would do that under project. I should have pointed this out a little earlier. Project configurations. This is where you make the project look the way you want, and see right here. This is the numbering of the revisions. See this? Format, revision format. So you can change this to 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. See ABC. 1, 2, 3. Oh, song there. So yes, it does. And you see this custom one here. This is a custom. I don't want to go too deep down a rabbit hole, but this is where you can write your own formulas. Okay, so formulas, click on the FX. You can see there's already some preset formulas, but if you're really feeling bold, you can go in here, write your own formulas based on different, it's just like programming. Yeah, you're laughing at, I laugh too. I am nowhere near an expert. You know who's an expert? Charles, our product manager. If you guys really are getting into some custom formulas, contact us, and he can help you out. He's amazing at that stuff. Okay, but then what formulas, of course, do is now every time I create a new revision, it adheres to that formula, right? So, yep, absolutely. Okay, and got about 15 minutes. Cool. So we got the revisions. You're good on revisions, Jeff? Does all that make more sense? If you need further reference, I did do a video on our YouTube channel about it that you reference, but it's pretty much what I just showed you. So, okay. So let's go in. Let's look at some reports. So reports are under the project tab. So reports. And then you see we already have a drawings list. So the drawing list right here, that's a report. It's reading in the SQL database. So we can add additional ones, right? Just hit add. Here is all the possible types of reports you can select. And you can create custom reports. If they're simple changes to existing reports, don't have to do too much. If they're really complicated, you need to know SQL. Again, something that Hawkridge and Charles can help you guys out if you need. Okay, he can write custom reports for you as long as the software can do it, right? So let's add in some reports here. List of cables is a good one. I think I'll do list of cables. I'm going to do a list of wires and then the bill of materials grouped by manufacturer. So these are all the ones I'm adding to my project. So I'll select OK. All right. And the first one that pops up is this list of wires. So you can see there's origin, destination, wire number. Wire number is blank. And length is 0. The SolidWorks, unless you're using SolidWorks Electrical 3D, you have to manually put in the length because this is just a schematic. It doesn't know if that's 100 feet between it, 5 feet, 2 inches, whatever. Okay. But we'll get back to this wire number in a second. I added these to my project, but see, nothing changed about my document list. To get them into the project, I'm going to hit generate drawings, select which ones I want to add. Okay, list of cables, bill of materials, list of wires, and then hit OK. And that makes it so that you can print these out, save it out with your PDF, print it out with your printer, or you can also do up here at the top, see we have the ability to do an Excel export, something like that, right? Very helpful for like the bill of materials in particular, right? So you can do that. So let's go to the list of wires by the wire style. And again, you can lay these out. So right here you see, well, as I said, no wire numbers. That's no good, right? How much work would it take if you're manually going to go through here and add wire numbers to this? A lot, right? It'd take me a lot of time. Nice thing, go to this process tab, hit number new wires. This command can be a little confusing because there's a yes or a no. So yes, do you want to number new wires without modifying the existing numbers? What that means is you do have the ability to manually number wires, okay, if you want. If you say yes, it's not going to touch those, okay? So sometimes you have a legacy cable or legacy information. You want to process new numbers, that's fine. It won't touch that. If you hit no, it doesn't do anything, Okay. It's like cancel. So you either have you have two choices. Do it or don't do it. That's it. Okay. So I'm going to hit yes. Just like the rope trick, right? Magic. Everything's been numbered. These are based, again, back in those project configurations or, yeah, project configurations here. Is it project configurations? Sometimes I get it. So wire style. So a lot of this is how these are numbered. Okay. Oh, sorry. It is in the wire style. So how these are numbered are based on that formula. Okay. So it's going to look at certain things. So, and I can tell you that these numbers are based on the type of wire style and the location. Okay. So what column they're on, but it automatically numbers them. You don't have to think about anything, but I do have to think about the fact that I go back to my report and those numbers aren't there. Right. Well, as I said, it's an as-built kind of mentality. So to add those numbers and make sure they show up in the report, we need to go here, right-click, select Update Report Drawings. And it's going to go through and populate those wire numbers.
For the lines, you just click on and fill in the value?
No, sir. Bad, Lars. Bad. Lars said, do you just go in? Yeah, I don't know. Lars said, can you just go there and double click on them? And if this wasn't a SQL database based program, yes, you could. But this information, remember, anything on these reports, it's all reading it from somewhere. So it's not like an Excel table where you can just go in and change that. So how you would change it is you'd go to the physical wire here. Let's say this L3, right? Go to the properties. Okay. And then you put in, I never see it right off the bat. Cable reference. Where is it? Oh, not the wire style. Sorry. Wire properties. There we go. Length. That's where you put this in. So put in 100. Again, update your report. I gotta find where that wire is. I should be able to find it. Yeah, you got it. And not there. Go on. I know you're here. Yeah. Well, easy way we could do this. Go back to our reports. See, this is like a preview of the report. These, and then just do a sort by length. There you go. 158, I would have never found it. Okay, and that's how you have to do that. So just, you got to wrap your head around the SQL database, all these fields, you're populating them so that when you hit that report generation, it does all that stuff for you and it's keeping track of it. Correct. Yep. It is. Lars said it's a one-way street, and he's absolutely correct. These are basically read only. You don't go in here and modify these fields. Okay.
Is there a different treatment for like the manufacturer part that is a 6-foot Ethernet cable or something like that, where it's got a defined length by itself?
Ah, great question. So Ed asked if you had a manufacturing cable, like off the shelf, a cable. You would define that. So see, there's a length here. You would make that part of that cable when you define the cable. So if we go back to the cables, for example, this W10, you go here and you assign it a link right there. And that's what you would do. And then we'll just do it. This one's a lot easier because there's only 10 cables. And then you would update that. And there you go. And the reason I mentioned that too, I know again, we're not talking about 3D generally, but if you did go through the 3D functionality where you do your schematic, you press route wires, route cables, and it routes it for you, it'll populate these links automatically based on that information. Caveat, if you do that, it manually overrides this information. Okay? Or not manually, it automatically overrides it. And if you did have something like a off-the-shelf cable that you did like that, you'd have to go back in and manually change it back. Oh, man. Well, I think I got to that. Oh, are you guys doing terminal strips? Yeah, a little bit. Oh, one thing too before I move on. I'll show you two last things. Bill of materials, of course, very important. So you can do bill of material. Group by manufacturer. Yeah. So terminal strips, right? We have a terminal strip. Obviously, we have several terminal strips, X1, X2, X3. And if you've ever had to do terminal strip drawings, they can be a hassle. Well, having your terminal strip. So I'll show you the terminal strips editor right here. Just like a lot of different other things, terminal strips are their own entity, kind of like the PLC. So there's a terminal strip manager. And you can go in and see all that information. So it's keeping track of the manufacturer parts for each terminal block, where they're going from, where they're coming to, what cable are they hooked up to. Also, you can see these columns here. These are for bridges. Okay? So if you want to bridge 3 terminal strips, just select them all, select create bridges. Okay. Not Jeff Bridges, but create bridges. But nice thing is I have my terminal strip laid out. I'm ready. I want to see what it looks like on my drawing. Right click, generate drawing. And it gives me a notification. All the drawings are generated. It shows up on the bottom of my list. And I could pretend like that took me hours and go do something else, but it's been all generated for you. Yep. And again, though, these are just like reports. So, if you make changes to a terminal strip, you have to go back and update this drawing. Right on this, right? So I guess that brings me to the end. I feel like it was a lot. You guys had a lot of great questions. Anything else like off the top of your head right now that, no? Okay, go in a lot deeper. Encourage you guys. A lot of this stuff I've just pulled from the training manual, schematic training manual. So I was go through those tutorials, but of course, take a class with us if you really want it. We go in deep. This schematic class is 3 days, so go through quite a bit. Be taught by myself or one of my colleagues. But you don't have any other questions? Was there anything from online, Lars? No? Okay. All right. Yeah, no problem.